Working security at the Galactic Orphanage and Rehabilitation Center should be boring, right? Watch some sad alien kids, make sure they do not steal the silverware, occasionally break up fights over who gets the last serving of nutritional paste. My name is CrixVal12, and I thought I had signed up for the easiest job in the sector. Boy, was I wrong. The center operates on Station Omega-7, a massive humanitarian facility floating in neutral space where the galaxy's unwanted children end up. We house about 3,000 young beings from over 200 different species, most of them orphans from various wars, disasters, and general cosmic unpleasantness. The place runs on charity donations and guilt money from governments that prefer not to think too hard about the collateral damage their policies create. Most of our residents are what you might call problem cases. These are not your average orphans who just need a hug and some stability. These are cubs, hatchlings, and spawn from predator species whose parents died in combat, whose homeworlds were destroyed, or who were abandoned because they were too dangerous to keep around civilized society. We have Krellian battle cubs whose natural instinct is to challenge everything that moves to mortal combat. Thracian death spawn who secrete venom that can dissolve steel when they get excited. Ravager younglings who consider screaming and property destruction to be appropriate responses to minor inconvenience. And that is just the first floor. The second floor houses the really dangerous ones. Species whose children are born with natural weapons, enhanced strength, or psychological profiles that make professional soldiers look like cuddly pets. The kind of young beings that most civilized worlds would rather pretend do not exist. And then there is the third floor, which we call the Special Cases Wing. This is where we keep the children who are too traumatized, too violent, or too psychologically damaged for the regular population. Cubs who have seen their entire families slaughtered, younglings who have been used as weapons in military conflicts, spawn who have been subjected to experimental procedures that left them barely functional. The third floor is where I spend most of my time, because someone has to make sure these kids do not accidentally murder each other during group therapy sessions. This particular incident started on a Tuesday, during what the staff optimistically calls recreational period. This is when we let the third floor residents out of their individual containment. I mean, private rooms, to socialize in the common area under heavy supervision. The common area looks like a cross between a playground and a maximum security prison. Soft surfaces everywhere to prevent serious injuries, reinforced walls to contain explosive temper tantrums, and enough surveillance equipment to monitor a small planet. The furniture is designed to be comfortable while also being impossible to use as weapons, which is trickier than you might think when dealing with species that can weaponize their own bodily functions. On this particular Tuesday, we had 12 residents in the common area, representing some of the most dangerous juvenile predators in known space. And they were all completely focused on something happening in the corner near the reading nook. Now, when a dozen traumatized alien killing machines suddenly develop laser focus on anything, that is usually a bad sign. It generally means someone is about to get eviscerated, or the building is about to explode, or some other exciting event that will require me to file incident reports for the next 6 months. But these kids were not acting aggressive. They were acting protective, which was somehow even more concerning. I activated my risk communicator and called for backup. Control, this is CrixVal12 on 3rd floor. I need additional security in the common area immediately. What is the situation? Came the reply from Supervisor Flux 9 Authority. Unknown. The residents are displaying unusual behavior patterns. Possible threat assessment required. What I did not mention was that several of these kids had never shown protective instincts toward anything in their entire lives. Most of them had been trained from birth to view everything around them as either prey or competition. The fact that they were cooperating on anything was unprecedented. I approached the group carefully, keeping my movements slow and non-threatening. The last thing you want to do with traumatized predator cubs is trigger their fight-or-flight responses, especially when they outnumber you 12-1. As I got closer, I could see what had captured their attention. In the corner of the reading nook, someone had built what could only be described as a nest. It was not a crude pile of bedding or a simple fort made from cushions. This was an intricate, carefully constructed shelter built from every soft material the cubs could find. Blankets woven together with engineering precision, pillows arranged to provide optimal support and protection, stuffed animals positioned as both comfort items and defensive barriers. The construction showed evidence of multiple species working together, each contributing their natural abilities to the project. The Krelian cubs had used their natural strength to move heavy furniture into position. The Thracian younglings had used their acidic secretions to carefully fuse materials together. The Ravager spawn had contributed their instinctive understanding of defensive architecture. But the most impressive part was not the construction itself. It was what was inside the nest. Dr. Lisa Harper was sleeping peacefully in the center of this elaborate structure, completely unaware that she had become the focal point of the most complex cooperative effort these children had ever undertaken. Dr. Harper was our newest staff member, a human xenopsychologist, who had been hired specifically to work with the third-floor residents. She was young, maybe 25 years old, with the kind of optimistic attitude that suggested she had not yet learned to be properly afraid of things that could eat her. She had arrived at the center 6 weeks ago with impressive credentials, letters of recommendation from prestigious institutions, and a research proposal about innovative approaches to interspecies trauma therapy. What she did not have was any practical experience dealing with children who could accidentally kill her if they sneezed too enthusiastically. Most of the staff had given her 2 weeks before she requested a transfer to something safer, like explosive ordnance disposal or volcano research. Instead, she had somehow managed to accomplish what teams of professional counselors, behavioral specialists, and military psychologists had failed to achieve in years of trying. She had gotten the cubs to trust her. Dr. Harper did not use the standard approaches that most species employed when dealing with dangerous children. She did not try to establish dominance through intimidation, or create artificial pack hierarchies, or use pharmaceutical interventions to suppress natural behaviors. Instead, she did something that apparently no adult in these cubs' lives had ever done before. She treated them like people. She learned their names, not their case numbers. She asked about their interests, not their psychological profiles. She listened when they talked, instead of just waiting for them to finish so she could deliver her next therapeutic intervention. Most importantly, she was not afraid of them. Not in the way that suggested reckless stupidity, but in the way that suggested genuine respect for their capabilities and intelligence. The cubs had responded to this unprecedented treatment with something approaching worship. They fought over who got to sit next to her during group sessions. They competed to see who could be most helpful during her research activities. They actually started following the center's rules without being threatened or bribed, simply because Dr. Harper had asked them to. It was the most remarkable transformation I had ever witnessed in 15 years of security work. But this nest situation was something entirely new. "Dr. Harper?" I called softly, not wanting to startle her or provoke a protective response from her young guardians. She stirred slightly but did not wake up. I could see why. The nest the cubs had built was incredibly comfortable, with perfect temperature regulation, optimal acoustics for peaceful sleep, and enough cushioning to make a luxury hotel bed seem like a rock. "Control," I whispered into my communicator. "I need Supervisor Flux 9 authority down here immediately, and maybe someone from the xenobiology department." "What is the situation?" came the reply. I looked around at 12 of the most dangerous juvenile predators in known space, all of whom were maintaining perfect silence so their favorite human could get a good nap. "I think," I said very carefully, "we may need to revise our understanding of interspecies bonding protocols." That was when little Zeph Claw 9, a 6-year-old Ravager cub, whose species was known for solving problems through overwhelming violence, toddled over to me and whispered in perfect standard galactic, "Shh! Mama Lisa is sleeping." Mama Lisa. The cubs had just claimed a human as their adoptive mother. And judging by the protective circle they had formed around her improvised nest, they were prepared to defend that claim against anyone foolish enough to challenge it, including me. This was going to require some very careful handling, because when traumatized predator cubs decide to adopt someone, they tend to take the responsibility very seriously indeed. The kind of seriously that results in species-wide policy changes and complete revisions of interstellar adoption laws. Dr. Lisa Harper was about to wake up as the most protected human in the galaxy, whether she wanted to be or not. But before I could figure out how to handle this unprecedented situation, more cubs started arriving. Word had somehow spread throughout the third floor that something important was happening in the common area, and the remaining residents were abandoning their scheduled activities to investigate. This was problematic for several reasons, not least of which was that our containment protocols were specifically designed to prevent large gatherings of traumatized predator children. When you have kids who consider violence to be an appropriate response to loud noises, overcrowding tends to result in what the incident reports delicately term cascade behavioral failures. But as each new cub arrived and saw the nest, something extraordinary happened. Instead of the usual territorial disputes and dominance challenges, they immediately understood what was occurring and quietly joined the protective circle. Tiny Ripfang 7, a 4-year-old Thracian whose acidic secretions had accidentally dissolved 3 different caretakers' uniforms, carefully tiptoed over and added her favorite blanket to the nest's outer perimeter. Massive Crunchbone 4, an 8-year-old Krellian whose idea of gentle play involved wrestling with furniture, delicately placed his stuffed animal collection around Dr. Harper's sleeping form like tiny guardians. Even Screechkill 2, a Vexian youngling whose previous interactions with adults had consisted entirely of ear-piercing wails and property destruction, was maintaining absolute silence while weaving additional comfort materials into the structure. I had never seen anything like it. These children, who had been abandoned, traumatized, and brutalized by the galaxy's various conflicts, were demonstrating more sophisticated cooperative behavior than most adult diplomatic delegations. "This is impossible," I whispered into my communicator. "Control. I need xenopsychology specialists, behavioral analysts, and probably someone from the Interspecies Adoption Authority down here immediately. Crix Val 12, what exactly is your situation?" Supervisor Flux 9 Authority's voice carried the kind of patience that suggested he was dealing with what he assumed was another routine security overreaction. "Sir, I have 18 traumatized predator cubs who have spontaneously organized into a protective collective around our human staff member. They have constructed what appears to be a ceremonial nest, and are referring to Dr. Harper as their adoptive mother." The communication channel went silent for several long moments. "Did you just say they built a nest?" Supervisor Flux 9 Authority asked finally. "Yes, sir. An elaborate, architecturally sophisticated nest using advanced cooperative construction techniques, and they are guarding it like their lives depend on it." Crix Val 12. Are you certain you have not been exposed to any hallucinogenic substances recently? I looked around at the scene before me. 18 of the most dangerous juvenile beings in known space, all working together with the kind of seamless coordination that would make military units jealous, all focused on protecting one sleeping human who had somehow become the center of their emotional universe. "Sir, I am completely sober and operating under normal parameters. This situation requires immediate administrative attention and possibly emergency consultation with the Galactic Council's Interspecies Relations Committee." That got his attention. The Interspecies Relations Committee only got involved when someone accidentally started diplomatic incidents that could destabilize entire sectors. "I will be there in 5 minutes," he said. "Do not do anything to disturb the cubs or wake Dr. Harper until I arrive." "Understood, sir." I settled into a corner to wait, keeping my movements minimal and my voice low. The cubs had accepted my presence as long as I remained non-threatening, but I had no illusions about what would happen if they decided I was a danger to their adopted mother. As I watched them continue to improve and refine their nest construction, I began to understand what I was really witnessing. These were not just random acts of affection or simple protective instincts. This was sophisticated social bonding behavior that suggested these cubs had formed what xenopsychologists call a surrogate family unit. Dr. Harper had not just gained their trust. She had accidentally triggered their species' most fundamental biological imperative, the need to protect and nurture family members. And once predator species decide someone is family, they do not give up that claim easily. Or ever. Dr. Lisa Harper was about to wake up as the most protected human in the galaxy, whether she wanted to be or not. Supervisor Flux 9 Authority arrived with what appeared to be half the station's administrative staff trailing behind him. Dr. Vex Prime Analysis from Xenopsychology, Director Morph Data Synthesis from Behavioral Studies, and 3 specialists I did not recognize, but who were carrying enough recording equipment to document a small war. They all stopped dead when they saw the nest. "By the 7 moons of Kraxon," whispered Dr. Vex Prime Analysis, her multiple optical organs adjusting frantically as she tried to process what she was seeing. "This is unprecedented." "Crixval 12, Supervisor Flux 9 Authority said very quietly. "How long has Dr. Harper been asleep?" "Approximately 47 minutes, sir. The Cubs began construction about 30 minutes ago." "And they built all of this in 30 minutes? I gestured toward the elaborate structure that now occupied most of the reading nook. The Cubs had continued refining their work, adding layers of protection, comfort features, and what appeared to be primitive but effective climate control systems. "Yes, sir. They have been working in perfect coordination. No arguments, no territorial disputes, no dominance conflicts. Just pure cooperative effort." Director Morph Data Synthesis was frantically taking notes on his portable data pad. "This contradicts everything we know about juvenile predator social behavior. These species should not be capable of this level of collaboration, especially given their psychological profiles." That was when little Bashcrush 5, a 7-year-old Krellian who had been classified as unsuitable for group activities due to his tendency to solve problems by breaking things, noticed the new arrivals. Instead of his usual aggressive posturing, he simply put one finger to his lips in the universal gesture for quiet and pointed toward the sleeping human in the center of their creation. The message was clear. "Do not wake, Mama Lisa." "Fascinating," murmured Dr. Vex Prime Analysis. "They are demonstrating protective parental recognition behaviors typically reserved for biological offspring or pack leaders." "But Dr. Harper is not their species," Director Morph Data Synthesis pointed out. "Cross-species adoption is virtually unknown among predator juveniles. Their instincts should classify her as either prey or irrelevant." "Unless," said a new voice from the doorway, "human bonding patterns are more complex than we assumed." We all turned to see Dr. Astra, the station's chief xenobiologist, entering with her usual collection of reference materials and analytical equipment. "Dr. Astra," Supervisor Flux 9 Authority said, "what do you mean by complex bonding patterns?" "I mean that humans have this unusual ability to trigger parental recognition responses in non-related species," Dr. Astra explained, setting up her portable scanners around the perimeter of the nest. "They call it pack bonding, and it extends far beyond their own kind." She activated her equipment and began taking readings that immediately made her optical organs widen with surprise. "These Cubs are not just protecting Dr. Harper," she announced. "They are actively monitoring her vital signs, adjusting the nest's environment to maintain optimal conditions, and coordinating their activities to ensure continuous coverage." "Continuous coverage of what?" I asked. "Security protocols. They have established overlapping guard rotations, threat assessment procedures, and what appears to be a primitive but effective early warning system." As if to demonstrate her point, 2 Cubs who had been positioned near the entrance immediately focused their attention on a maintenance drone that was approaching their area. Their posture shifted from relaxed to alert, and they began making soft chittering sounds that caused the other Cubs to subtly adjust their positions. The drone, apparently recognizing the change in atmosphere, altered its route to avoid the nest entirely. "They are learning," Dr. Astra said with obvious amazement. "These Cubs are developing sophisticated group dynamics in real time, all centered around protecting Dr. Harper." "But why Dr. Harper?" Supervisor Flux 9 Authority asked. "What makes her different from the other staff members?" Dr. Vex Prime Analysis consulted her behavioral analysis data. "According to my observations, Dr. Harper is the first adult these Cubs have encountered who treats them as individuals rather than problems to be managed. She does not fear them," Director Morph Data Synthesis added. "Fear triggers their predator responses. Respect triggers their social bonding mechanisms." That was when Dr. Harper began to stir. The change in the Cubs' behavior was immediate and dramatic. Their relaxed vigilance shifted to active alertness, with every young being in the nest focusing on their adopted mother as she slowly woke up. "Good morning, sweethearts," Dr. Harper said softly, apparently not surprised to find herself surrounded by 18 devoted alien children. "Did you all sleep well?" A chorus of affirmative chirps, clicks, and purrs answered her, along with several cubs offering her water, snacks, and their favorite comfort items. "Dr. Harper," Supervisor Flux 9 Authority called carefully, "we need to discuss the current situation." She looked up and noticed the crowd of administrators and specialists gathered around the nest for the first time. "Oh, hello everyone. Is there a problem?" "The cubs have built a nest around you," I explained. "They have claimed you as their adoptive mother and established protective protocols." Dr. Harper looked around at the elaborate structure, then at the faces of the cubs who were watching her with obvious devotion. "Well," she said thoughtfully, "that explains why I slept so well. This is incredibly comfortable." "Dr. Harper," Dr. Astra said urgently, "do you understand what has happened? These cubs have formed a surrogate family unit with you as the maternal figure. This is unprecedented in interspecies psychology." "Is it a problem?" Dr. Harper asked, gently stroking the head of Tiny Fang 8, who was purring like a small engine. "It could be," Supervisor Flux 9 Authority admitted. "When predator species form family bonds, they become extremely protective. If anyone tries to separate you from these cubs, they may react with violence." Dr. Harper considered this information while accepting a drink of water from Screech Kill 2, who was hovering nearby with obvious concern for her hydration levels. "So what you are telling me," she said slowly, "is that these children, who have been abandoned and traumatized by the galaxy's various conflicts, have decided that I am worth protecting?" "That is a simplified but accurate assessment," Dr. Vex Prime Analysis confirmed. "And they have demonstrated unprecedented levels of cooperation, intelligence, and social development in order to ensure my safety and comfort." "Yes." "And the problem with this situation is exactly what—" The assembled administrators looked at each other with the kind of confusion that comes from having your fundamental assumptions challenged by inconvenient facts. "Well," Supervisor Flux 9 Authority said eventually, "there are protocols to consider. Regulations about staff-resident interactions, liability issues regarding interspecies adoption procedures." Dr. Harper looked around at the cubs who were hanging on every word of this conversation, clearly understanding that their new family arrangement was being threatened by adult bureaucracy. "I see," she said in the same calm tone she used during therapy sessions. "And are these protocols more important than the emotional well-being of traumatized children?" "That is not the issue," Director Morph Data Synthesis protested. "The issue is safety. These cubs could accidentally harm you if they become overprotective." "Could they?" Dr. Harper asked. "Because from where I am sitting, these children have demonstrated more care, consideration, and emotional intelligence than most adults I have encountered." She gestured to the nest around her, which was indeed a marvel of engineering and thoughtfulness. "They monitored my vital signs while I slept. They maintained optimal environmental conditions. They worked together without conflict to create something beautiful and functional. What exactly about this behavior suggests they are dangerous to me?" The administrators found themselves without a good answer to that question. "Furthermore," Dr. Harper continued, "if these cubs have chosen me as their family, then I choose them as mine. Are you telling me that the Galactic Orphanage and Rehabilitation Center is going to separate a family because it makes paperwork complicated?" That was when Zeph Claw 9 spoke up in his careful, precise standard galactic. "Mama Lisa stays with us. We protect Mama Lisa. Anyone who tries to take Mama Lisa away will learn why our species conquered 17 star systems before we were old enough for school." The threat was delivered in the same polite tone Dr. Harper used for academic discussions, which somehow made it infinitely more terrifying. "I think," said Dr. Astra after a moment of stunned silence, "we need to contact the Interspecies Adoption Authority and revise our understanding of human pack bonding capabilities." "I think," said Supervisor Flux 9 Authority, "we need to contact everyone and revise our understanding of everything." Dr. Harper smiled and pulled Tiny Fang 8 closer for a hug. "I think we just need to accept that family comes in all shapes and sizes, and sometimes the most broken beings make the strongest bonds." 6 months later, the Galactic Orphanage and Rehabilitation Center had become the most successful interspecies family placement facility in known space. Dr. Harper's cubs had become model citizens who helped other traumatized children adjust to their new lives. The nest remained in place, expanded, and improved over time, serving as both a symbol of successful interspecies bonding and a reminder that sometimes the best solutions come from listening to the people who need help, rather than the people who think they know how to provide it. And every night, 18 of the galaxy's most dangerous former outcasts went to sleep knowing they were loved, protected, and valued by someone who saw them as children rather than problems. Sometimes the most important families are the ones we choose. Sometimes the most powerful bonds are formed by beings who understand what it means to be lost and found again. Dr. Lisa Harper learned this the day she woke up surrounded by love in the form of an alien nest built by children who decided she was worth protecting. The cubs learned that being dangerous and being loved were not mutually exclusive. And the galaxy learned that human pack bonding was not just a curiosity. It was a force that could heal wounds, build bridges, and turn the most broken beings into the strongest families, one nest at a time. But the real changes were just beginning, because when word spread throughout the galactic community that a human had successfully adopted 18 traumatized predator cubs, every government, military organization, and social services agency wanted to understand how she had done it. The requests started arriving within days of the initial incident. The Krellian High Command wanted to know if Dr. Harper's methods could be applied to their own orphaned battle cubs. The Thracian Council inquired about establishing similar programs for their abandoned death spawn. Even the notoriously secretive Ravager clans sent diplomatic envoys asking for consultation on alternative child-rearing methodologies. "This is getting out of hand," Supervisor Flux 9 Authority complained during our weekly staff meeting, gesturing at the towering pile of official communications that had arrived overnight. "We have requests from 47 different species, 12 military organizations, and what appears to be the entire Interspecies Child Welfare Department." Dr. Harper, who was attending the meeting with Zeph-Claw 9 sitting quietly in her lap and Tiny Fang 8 organizing her data pads, looked up from her research notes. "What exactly are they requesting?" "Everything," I replied, consulting my security briefing reports. "Training programs, consultation services, complete psychological profiles of your bonding techniques, and in some cases, requests for you to personally adopt their problem children. The Vexian Trade Federation offered us enough funding to build 17 new facilities if you would agree to take custody of their behaviorally challenging youth," Director Morph Data Synthesis added. "Apparently, they have 342 young beings who have been classified as unsuitable for traditional family placement." Dr. Harper frowned thoughtfully, while absently stroking Zeph-Claw 9's head. "That seems like a lot of children without homes." "It is a lot of children without homes," Dr. Astra confirmed. "And after reviewing the galactic statistics on orphaned predator species, I discovered something disturbing. There are approximately 57,000 young beings currently warehoused in various containment facilities throughout known space, because no one knows how to handle them." The number hit the room like a physical blow. 57,000 children, abandoned and institutionalized because their natural abilities made them inconvenient for civilized society. "That cannot be right," I protested. "Surely their own species would—" "Their own species consider them damaged goods," Dr. Astra interrupted. "Cubs who have witnessed family massacres, younglings who have been used as weapons in military conflicts, spawn who have been subjected to experimental procedures. Their psychological trauma makes them unsuitable for traditional adoption within their own cultures." "So they are just stored somewhere?" Dr. Harper asked, and there was something in her voice that made every predator instinct in the room sit up and take notice. "Contained, medicated, and forgotten," Dr. Astra confirmed. "Most facilities focus on maintaining basic life functions and preventing escapes. Very few attempt actual rehabilitation or family placement." Dr. Harper was quiet for several long moments, her hands continuing to provide comfort to the cubs who had claimed her as family. When she finally spoke, her voice carried the kind of determination that had probably worried her parents when she was young. "We need to help them." "Dr. Harper," Supervisor Flux 9 Authority said carefully, "you cannot possibly adopt 57,000 children." "Not personally, no," she agreed. "But we can teach other humans how to do what I did. We can establish programs, train staff, create environments where these children can heal and grow." "Other humans?" Director Morph Data Synthesis asked. What makes you think other humans have the same capabilities you do? Dr. Harper smiled, and Zefclaw9 made a happy, purring sound in response. Because pack bonding is not unique to me. It is a fundamental characteristic of human psychology. We form emotional attachments to anything that needs protection, regardless of species, origin, or how dangerous it might be. That is a rather broad generalization, Dr. Vex Prime Analysis pointed out. Is it? Dr. Harper asked. How many humans do you know who have adopted alien pets, formed friendships with dangerous species, or volunteered to work in hostile environments simply because someone needed help? The administrators looked at each other with the kind of realization that comes from having obvious facts pointed out in ways that suddenly make them significant. Every human colony has stories about people who rescued injured alien creatures, I admitted. Even species that could easily kill them. Human military units are famous for adopting local animals during deployments, Dr. Astra added. Often creatures that their own species consider pests or predators. And human civilians regularly volunteer for humanitarian missions in war zones, disaster areas, and other locations that most species would consider unsurvivable, Director Morph Data Synthesis continued. Dr. Harper nodded. We do not think about it as unusual behavior because it feels natural to us. But apparently the rest of the galaxy finds our attachment tendencies remarkable. Remarkable enough to revolutionize child welfare services, Supervisor Flux 9 Authority muttered, staring at the pile of requests with new understanding. That was when Bash Crush 5, who had been quietly building a small fortress out of office supplies in the corner, looked up and made an announcement that changed the direction of our entire conversation. More cubs should have Mama Lisa's, he said in his careful, precise standard galactic. All cubs deserve families. We help make more families. The simple logic of a 7-year-old Krellian somehow cut through all the administrative complexity and political implications to arrive at the heart of the matter. Yes, Dr. Harper said softly. All cubs deserve families. Within 3 months, the Galactic Orphanage and Rehabilitation Center had been transformed into the Human Alien Family Integration Institute. Dr. Harper's methods had been documented, analyzed, and turned into training programs that were being implemented across 17 different star systems. Human volunteers arrived from colonies throughout the galaxy, all eager to learn how to form the kind of bonds that Dr. Harper had developed with her cubs. They came from every profession and background: teachers, engineers, farmers, soldiers, artists, and scientists. What they all had in common was the fundamental human drive to protect and nurture beings who needed help. The first graduation ceremony was held 6 months after the original nest incident. 43 humans had successfully completed the training program and were being matched with groups of traumatized alien children who had been written off as hopeless cases by their respective governments. Dr. Harper stood on the ceremony platform with her original 18 cubs arranged around her like a protective honor guard, watching as new families were formed through the simple application of human pack bonding instincts. Mama Lisa, Zefclaw9 whispered during the ceremony. Why do humans do this? Why do you choose broken cubs? Dr. Harper smiled and pulled him closer. Because broken things can be fixed, sweetheart. And sometimes the most beautiful families are made from pieces that did not originally fit together. The ceremony concluded with the signing of the Interspecies Family Recognition Accords, officially recognizing cross-species adoption as a fundamental right and establishing humans as the galaxy's premier specialists in rehabilitative family formation. By the end of the first year, over 3,000 human-alien families had been successfully established. The warehouses where traumatized cubs had been forgotten were being converted into community centers and schools. Species that had considered their damaged offspring to be lost, causes were discovering that human families could heal wounds that traditional approaches had failed to address. The nest that had started it all remained in place at the Institute, expanded into a full wing dedicated to emergency placements and crisis intervention. Dr. Harper continued her research, now focused on developing new techniques for cross-species trauma recovery and family integration. Her original 18 cubs grew up to become counselors, teachers, and advocates themselves, using their experiences to help other damaged younglings find their own human families. And every night, in facilities across the galaxy, thousands of alien children went to sleep, knowing they were loved, protected, and valued by humans who had chosen them not despite their differences, but because of them. The galaxy had learned that human pack bonding was not just a curiosity or a useful trait. It was a force that could heal species-wide trauma, build bridges across evolutionary divides, and turn the most hopeless cases into success stories, one nest at a time.